New Hampshire.
Thank you, Madam President. I come to the floor, first of all, I've come to the floor a number of times during this government shutdown just to say how absurd this has been for the American people, that we have found ourselves where we are, to have the government shut down, and those who brought forward a strategy to defund Obamacare. The exchanges have opened anyway. That's why I never supported this strategy, because I didn't think it was smart for the country or achievable. And we've been coming up against the debt ceiling issue. So I come to the floor today after having come to the floor on several occasions expressing my concerns and frustration. I want to thank our leader, Mitch McConnell, and the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, for coming together around an agreement to end the shutdown, to address the debt ceiling, even if on a short-term basis, so that we can get out of the hole we're in and start to deal with the big picture problems facing the nation. And around this, I was very heartened that a bipartisan group of senators came together to solve this problem, led by Senator Collins from Maine, and 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats. Let me just say, among the 7 Democrats was my colleague from New Hampshire, Senator Shaheen, who I see in the chamber. And if the chair would recognize Senator Shaheen, I want to thank her because what we've been able to do in New Hampshire is that she and I, even though we come from opposite sides of the aisle, have been able to find ways to work together on behalf of our state and on behalf of the country. And she was in this group of 7 senators as a Democratic senator, and I was there as a Republican, both representing the state of New Hampshire, ready with an agreement to solve this crisis we were in. And so I want to recognize my colleague and thank her for being part of a group that wanted to solve these problems for the nation.
Madam President, if my colleague would yield.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Madam President. I very much appreciate my fellow senator from New Hampshire, Senator Ayotte's nice remarks, and I would echo those. She and I have both been to the floor over the last few weeks to talk about the devastating impact of this government shutdown. It's been unnecessary, and the hardship, the very real hardship that it's placed on so many New Hampshire families, so many New Hampshire businesses, and the challenges that it means for the economy of our state and for the nation. And I would just say, I would ask my colleague if it would be important as we think about going forward and trying to deal longer term with the need to come up with a budget for this country, the need to address the paying our bills in the long term, if this kind of bipartisanship that we try to exhibit for New Hampshire would be important for all of us to think about as we try to solve those challenges long term, and also just for us to try and reassure the people of New Hampshire that I believe we're going to be working together to try and do that, and hopefully everyone else here will do the same.
Let me just say to my colleague from New Hampshire, the senior senator from New Hampshire, that I agree with that. We can't go through this again. And it is incumbent on all of us to work together, even though we come from different parties, so that we don't go from crisis to crisis in managing this nation. And I do hope with this agreement that we are able to come to a longer term, a budget for the nation, a longer term fiscal agreement for the nation to address our $17 trillion in debt, to address the challenges facing our economy, to work together to show people that we can solve problems on behalf of this country, and that we can make sure that we aren't continuing to go from crisis to crisis as we represent New Hampshire and this nation. And I know that both of us joined that group because we had had it with what was happening here, and we were ready to solve some problems together.
Madam President, I thank my friend and colleague from New Hampshire, Senator Ayotte.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Madam President, I wanted to continue just to thank the 7 senators on both sides of the aisle that were working together to resolve this and working with our leadership. And I mentioned this was led by an effort by Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski from Alaska, Senator McCain, Senator Johans, Senator Kirk, Senator Flake on the Republican side of the aisle, and on the Democrat side of the aisle, Senator Manchin, Senator Begich, Senator Pryor, my colleague Senator Shaheen, as I've mentioned, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Donnelly, Senator Heitkamp, and we even were tripartisan because we had Senator King with us as well in these efforts. And I think what we demonstrated is that we can come together as a core group when things break down here, that there are many of us that desire to solve the problems facing the nation, and we know that we can't do it with one party alone. It took 2 parties to get us $17 trillion in debt, and it's going to take 2 to get us out of this hole. Just like this fiscal crisis, it takes 2 parties to get us out and to solve the nation's problems. And I think that's what we learned from this experience, and I want to thank those who have worked so hard on it. Let me just say this. I'm blessed to be the mother of my children just turned 6 and 9 years old during this whole crisis situation. And my daughter, you know, because it's been hard to get home during this, and my family's still in New Hampshire. I still live in New Hampshire. And my daughter Kate asked me, Mom, why can't you just get the government open? What's wrong? Well, why can't you get this solved? I mean, such the common sense questions that I got from her and from our son Jacob. And think about the lessons we try to teach our children. Aren't we always trying to teach them that when they get into a conflict, you got to work it out? That yes, you don't get to get everything your way, that it isn't always your way. Well, those are the lessons I think all of us, regardless if we're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, trying to teach our children. And so I found myself in a hard position here where she's asking me the tough question. And I had to say to her, you're right, Kate, we got to work together. Otherwise, we're not going to get this solved. And even though I feel really strongly about my principles, I know that my Democrat colleagues do also. And what kind of lesson am I showing if I can't help get this resolved? And that's why I was proud to be part of a bipartisan agreement. Now, let me just bring us back to why we got into this government shutdown for a moment. Because the other thing, being a mother of 2 children, when something goes wrong, I always ask my children, when you make a mistake, what did you learn from this? What was the lesson you learned from the mistake? And I did not believe that the defunding Obamacare strategy was going to succeed from the beginning. Not because I'm not a strong opponent of Obamacare, I absolutely am. But the fact of the matter was that the government shut down, the exchanges opened anyway, and yet the government was shut down, and we put all these people who were worried about whether they're going to get their paycheck, veterans worried about what's going to happen. We can go on and on. I've heard the impact in my state. And I guess I would ask, and by the way, all the flaws that those of us believe that do exist in Obamacare, that was all overshadowed by the fact that the government was shut down. And I do want to fix this law. I want to repeal it. I want to replace it with common sense reforms. But this was not a strategy to make that happen. And I guess I would ask the question that I asked to my children, what do we learn from all this? What we learned is that this was not a successful strategy from the beginning. That yes, you can be against Obamacare as I am. I am for repealing it and replacing it. But shutting down the government was not a smart strategy and not the right direction. And I hope we never do this again. And I hope we learn our lessons from this. So I asked my children to do that, and I'm going to ask myself to do it, and I'm going to ask others to do it. And let's move forward. Let's work together. Let's find ways as we get to January and when the funding for the government expires again in February, Let's take on the big challenges facing this nation. The $17 trillion in debt, let's get a budget for the nation. Let's move forward from here, learn our lessons, work together, and get it done for the American people. Thank you, Madam President.